Hare Krishna, welcome all the devotees to our class on Srimad Bhagavatam study. Today we are going to do the study of the fifth chapter. We are going to start this chapter fresh. So we will target to study today the first shloka till the 16th shloka. And the title of this chapter fifth is Narad Muni's instruction on Srimad Bhagavatam for Srila Vyasdev. In all, this is our 14th class. We will start with Mangalacharan prayers, which I think was delegated to Vanaja Mataji. Is Vanaja Mataji available in the audience? No? Okay, so Vanaja Mataji is not available in the audience. Anyone else would like to try?
Yes, Prabhuji, I can try.
Prabhuji, may I try?
Okay, we have two devotees. So we give Anita Mataji for Mangalacharan, and then I think second person was Vidya Mataji. Who would like to
Yes,
volunteer?
Prabhuji. Yes,
Okay,
Prabhuji.
maybe you
Yes.
can try the Bhagavatam Mangalacharan.
Sure.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
Anita Mataji, you go with this Mangalacharan. Yeah.
Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnana Ajnashalakya Chakshur Unmilitanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagarajatam Sahagana Raghunathavitam Tam Sajivam Sadavaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhavitam Sha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Mataji, there is more. Yeah.
Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vacha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Very nice, Mataji, Anita Mataji. There are few places where I think the pronunciation, there is a scope for some improvement, but that we will capture sometimes later. But overall, very nice attempt. Thank you very much. Now, Vidya Mataji, please proceed.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirahe Nashta Pravesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Seveya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha.
Excellent, excellent, Mataji. Very nice. Only two words I think I feel there could be some improvement. Here, Udirayet, this word, and Prayeshva, Nashta Prayeshva Abhadreshu. So this is Prayesh and Udirayet. Just take care about them. Rest everything
Sure.
was done very well. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. We'll try.
Yeah. So now we go to the recap of the class number 13th, and for that I would like to invite His Grace Jivan Radha Govind Prabhu. Prabhuji, please can you take us to the summary of the previous class?
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
First of all, I would like to thank our Guruji Sri Keshav Gopal Prabhu for giving me this opportunity to make this recap. Actually, last class was on the chapter number 14, appearance of Narada. The verses covered were from verse number 14 to verse number 33. That is the end of the chapter. There are four main divisions of this chapter, verses 1 to 13, which speak of the Shaulaka Rishi's three questions to Suta Goswami. That is, one is the history of Srimad Bhagavatam, question number 1. Qualities and questions about Sukadeva Goswami, how he was perceived at Hastinapura and how did he meet King Parikshit. That is question number 3. And then the question number 2 is questions about Parikshit Maharaja, his birth, activities, and renunciation. Verses number 14 to 25 actually were covered from verse number 14 to 33 in the last class. Verses 14 to 25, it covers about Vyasadeva divides the Veda. Verses 26 to 31, Vyasadeva's dissatisfaction and contemplation. And verses 32 to 33, the Narada Muni visits Vyasadeva and Vyasadeva receives Narada Muni. Now let us get into the verses 14 to 33 in short, one by one. Verse number 14, birth of Vyasadeva, actually this speaks of the birth of Vyasadeva Muni to Parashara Muni in the womb of Satyavati, the daughter of fisherman Vasa. Next is verses 15 to 16. Vyasadeva, the great sage, when he was in meditation, could see the anomalies that would appear in Kali Yuga due to unseen force of time. Then verses number 17, we covered up to 16. Verses number 17 to 18 speak of Kali Yuga population qualities seen by the great sage through his transcendental vision. One is the decreased bodily strength. Two, that is the Shakti Rasan. Then is the fightless Ashraddha Danan. Third is the impatient due to lack of goodness, Nishtadwan. Then the fourth one is the dull-witted Durmedan. Then the fifth one is the reduced duration of life, Krasita Ayushaha. Then verses number 19 to 20 is about the division of Vedas. Seeing that the sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas are a means of purification to simplify and expand them among the people of Kali Yuga, Vyasadeva divided one Veda into 4, that is Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama, and Atharva Veda. Also, he also made available the 18 Puranas and Mahabharata, which are called the 5th Veda. And this is also confirmed in Canto Upanishad 7.1.4. Verses 21 to 22, Vyasadeva calls his disciples and instructs them to further divide their respective Vedas. Rigveda to Pailarshi, Samaveda to Jaimini, Yajurveda to Vaishampayana, Atharva Veda to Sumantu Muni, and Angira, Sumantu Muni Angira, and the Puranas to Ramaharshana. Verse number 23. Verse number 23 speaks of the expansion of the Vedic knowledge. The rishis, these rishis, which were mentioned previously, they pass the entrusted Veda to the disciples, grand disciple and great grand disciples, and many etc. And many sub branches of the Vedas came into existence through them. Verses 24 and 25 speak of the compassion of Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva thus edited the Vedas to help the less intelligent people to assimilate them and attain the ultimate good. For ease of understanding, he also compiled the Mahabharata, the fifth Veda, in the form of stories for women, Shudras, and also the Dvijabandhus, who are considered less intelligent. And Dvijabandhus are, though born in the families of Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, and spiritually advanced, spiritually cultured families, they are still not equal to their forefathers for want of purificatory achievements. Then verses number 26 and 27, verses 26 to 31, Vyasadeva's dissatisfaction and contemplation are being brought out in this section. Now let us come to verses number 26 and 27. The Vedas point out that Vyasadeva's mind was dissatisfied and in spite of all his welfare work, his mind was disturbed and he started reflecting on this. Verses number 28 and 29, these verses describe his contemplation of his efforts taken. What are the efforts he has taken? Vyasadeva underwent the strict disciplinary vows. He unpretentiously worshipped the Vedas, Guru, and the altar of sacrifice. He abided by the rulings. He also showed input of disciplic succession through the explanation of the Mahabharata, by which even women, Shudras, and others could see the path of religion. Verse number 30. Vyasadeva expresses his dissatisfaction and he was feeling incomplete, though he contributed his best. He was equipped with everything required, even though he contributed his best and was equipped with everything required in the Vedas. Verse number 31. In verse number 31, he contemplates on the possible reason for his dissatisfaction. He feels that the possible reason might be due to his not pointing out on the aspect of devotional service, which is dear to both the devotees and the infallible Lord. Verse number 32 and 33. Verse number 32 is about the arrival of Narada Muni to the cottage of Vyasadeva when Vyasadeva was regretting for his defects. Verse number 23, Vyasadeva gets up respectfully and wishes Narada Muni, treating him equal to Lord Brahma. I just want to add only one comment from Prabhupada, which is very, very important. Vyasadeva's dissatisfaction was it was actually produced by the Lord. And in the purport of 1.4.32, Vyasadeva is an avatar of the Lord, and hence lacking complete knowledge and being dissatisfied are impossible for him. The conditions were strongly produced by the Lord himself in order to manifest the Bhagavatam, which is non-different from him. Actually, these are all the forming part of the question.
We lost your voice, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Prabhu, we lost your voice. Can devotees hear?
Yes, Prabhuji, we can hear.
My voice you can hear, but Govind Prabhu's, Jivan Prabhu's voice you cannot hear, right?
Yes, we cannot hear his voice.
Okay. I think more or less Prabhuji has completed. Jivan Prabhu, can you hear? No. Anyway, I think we can proceed. So I will thank Jivan Radha Govind Prabhu for his very nice presentation of the previous class summary. Very succinctly and in very summarized form, he has done the recap. So thank you very much, Jivan Prabhu. In case you are able to hear us. Okay, we will move now. Okay, so we will start the new chapter today, the chapter number 5. And in front of you, there is an overview map of this chapter. The title is Narad's Instruction on Srimad Bhagavatam for Vyasadeva. So in the previous chapter, we see in the end, Narad Muni had already arrived at the ashram of his disciple Vyasadeva. And now the conversation, the very important conversation, I would say, would start between Narad Muni and Srila Vyasadeva. So this is divided into 4 themes primarily. The first theme is Narad inquires about Vyasa's despondency.
Prabhuji, sorry for interruption.
Yes, Prabhuji, yes, please, yes.
There is a disconnection of the internet because of the power problem.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought so. So we actually thanked you. In meanwhile, we
Thank you,
thanked
Prabhuji.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think you already completed more or less. Yeah. Okay, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank
Yeah. So I was mentioning Narad ji inquires about his disciples' despondency, and then next Narad Muni describes the importance of glorifying the Lord. So you will see this is a uh, very nice conversation between Narad Muni and Vyasdev, where a disciple, although you can see Vyasdev is such an accomplished person from spiritual perspective, from the perspective of self-realization, is a very exalted person, actually avatar of the Lord himself. But still, when exalted person like Vyasdev also can have difficulties in his in the life. So he's submitting very submissively before his guru to kindly help him eradicate that doubt or problem that he was facing. So it's a very nice conversation you can see between the guru and disciple. So we will try to cover till verse number 16, which is midway somewhere in the second theme of this chapter. So there's also a story of Narad Muni. He narrates his past life, and then Narad Muni advises Vyasdev further in the last two verses. So let us begin the discussion. So today, let me see who is the. So last time, whom did we ask for reciting the or reading from the class? Can you remind me?
I was there, Prabhuji. That's fine.
So Manish ji was there.
Yes.
I was there.
Vidya
I was
Mataji
also there, Swami.
Oh yeah, Vasudevan Prabhu was also there. So we have. So in today's class, we will give opportunity to Anuradha Mataji, Jivan Prabhu, Rakesh ji, and Vrindavaneshwari Mataji. So are these devotees available in the class? I don't see. Anuradha Mataji is not there. Jivan Prabhu is there and Rakesh Prabhu is there. Vrindavaneshwari Mataji mentioned she will join a little late. So we'll start with Jivan Prabhu. Okay, Prabhuji, are you there?
you. Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, so in today's class, in order to save some time, because it is mostly a storyline, I have not captured the Sanskrit verses as such, but I have captured the translation. So we will do the Sanskrit recitation only for 4 verses, which will appear later. But maybe we can you can help me recite the translation itself. Okay, so now you can see in the slide the discussion starts between Narad Muni and his disciple Vyasdev. You can see the picture. They are sitting in a very nice, natural, beautiful setting in the background, and the conversation is starting up. So, Jivan Prabhu, can you read the text in the slide?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji. So Goswami said, thus the Devarishi Narada, comfortably seated and apparently smiling, addressed the Viprasri Vyasadeva, Vedavyasa.
Yeah. Next one.
Can I further go ahead?
Yes, Prabhu.
Addressing Vyadeva, the son of Parashara, inquired, are you satisfied by identifying with the body or the mind as all of self-realization? Hare Krishna.
Yes. Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. So you see here, these are first 2 verses of chapter 5, first canto. Sut Goswami said, thus the Devarishi, which is Narad, and sitting comfortably and apparently smiling, address the Viprarshi, which is Vedavyas. So here you can see Narad has been addressed as Devarishi and Vyasdev has been addressed as Viprarshi. So there is a little difference here. Devarishi means that Narad Muni is the Rishi, is a sage among the Devatas, among the demigods. And Viprarshi means that Vyasdev is actually a sage among the Brahmanas. So Vipra actually means Brahmana. A learned Brahmana is known as Vipra. So among the learned Brahmanas, the Rishi is something which is known as has been addressed for Vyasdev, and for Narad Muni he has been addressed as Dev Rishi, which means a sage among the Devatas. So that is one small observation from this particular verse. And then you can see here it has been mentioned here apparently smiling. So apparently smiling means because Narad Muni in his heart actually understood the reason of Vyasdev's despondency. So that is why it is mentioned that Vyasdev was actually smiling very, I would say faintly he was smiling. Mand mand muskura rahe the. It was something like that. Just okay. Now, next in the second verse, addressing Vyasdev, the son of Parashar, Narad inquired, "Are you satisfied by identifying with the body or the mind as objects of self-realization?" Now here you can see Narad Muni is addressing now to Vyasdev and he's posing one question. And in the question, actually there is a hint. And what is the hint? The hint is about why Vyasdev is feeling despondent. So the hint is here. Are you satisfied by identifying with the body or the mind as objects of self-realization? So what does it mean? It means that most of the work that Srila Vyasdev has done typically actually was around the subject matter of body and the mind, and he has also written about the subject matter of self-realization, but most of it is around the subject matter of body and the mind. So that is what Narad Muni is actually now hinting to Vyasdev. Are you really satisfied by identifying with the body or the mind as objects of self-realization? So self is different, Atma is different, body is different, Atma is different from body and mind. But Vyasdev work has focused a lot on the subject matter of body and mind compared to the subject matter of Atma. And let us see how the discussion unfolds and how Narad Muni actually identifies Vyasdev's root cause, the root cause of his despondency. There are some points from the purport also. Jivan Prabhu, can you read one by one?
Okay, Prabhuji. Subject matter of chapter number 5. In the 5th chapter, showing the usefulness of jnana and karma, Narada teaches Vyasa about bhakti with its chief component, kirtana.
Yeah. So this is the purport from Sararth Darshani Tika. Sararth Darshani is the commentary by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. You can see on the screen Sararth Darshani Tika. Now in the Sararth Darshani Tika, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur briefly mentions in these 2 lines the subject matter of chapter number 5. In the chapter 5, showing the uselessness of jnana and karma, Narad teaches Vyasa about bhakti with its chief component kirtana. So here in nutshell, in these 2 lines, a very summarized version of the subject matter of chapter 5 has been mentioned by Vishwanath Chakravarti. So he's saying that Narad actually mentions why jnana is useless and karma is also useless, and why bhakti is topmost, and among bhakti also the chief component kirtan is the topmost. So this is the subject matter of chapter 5. Now please read the second line, second one, Prabhu. Jivan Prabhu, can you read the second from here? Are you still there? Yeah, but we are not able to hear you. Are you able to hear me, devotees? Hare Krishna, are you able to hear me?
We can hear you,
Yes,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
Okay, but Jivan, we cannot hear Jivan Prabhu, right?
We can't hear
Right,
Jivan.
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, there is again a problem of
Okay,
a
no.
problem of internet
Yeah,
disconnection.
please
That is
start.
why I could not do that.
Okay,
Now I'm using my phone. We
Okay.
can do that.
Okay, please go ahead.
So Narada gives a hint to Vyasa.
Hmm.
Ordinary men with poor fund of knowledge can identify the body as self or the mind as self, but Vyasadeva should not have done so.
Okay. Yes. Now, as I mentioned to you, Narad gives a hint to Vyas in the conversation. So here, Prabhupada is writing in the commentary that ordinary men, people who are not very learned, they are simple ordinary people, which don't have a lot of knowledge, a lot of self-realization, they don't have. They identify the body as self and mind also as self. But Vyasdev should not have done so. Vyasdev is a very exalted personality, an incarnation of the Lord himself, and then very learned, self-realized. Then he is doing a very important work of writing Vedic literature. So why he is doing this kind of writing, where he is writing this subject matter where the body has been given importance or mind has been given a lot of importance. So Vyasdev should not have done so. So you can see there is a hint in Narad Muni question here, which Prabhupada also identify in the purport. Okay.
Can I go ahead, Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhuji. Verse number 3.
Verse number 3, you did excellent work. Your enquiries were full and your studies were also well fulfilled, and there is no doubt that you have prepared a great and wonderful work, the Mahabharata, which is full of all kinds of Vedic sequences elaborately explained. In inference, cause of despondency is not lack of scriptural knowledge.
Yes, bro. Okay. Now we can further analyze this verse number 3, where Narad Muni is actually identifying the positive aspect of what Srila Vyasadeva has done. So you can also see indirectly, you can also learn how the conversation between the Guru and the disciple is taking place. First of all, the Guru is appreciating the disciple because he has come here to identify something which he has not done well. So before he goes to that root cause, he's actually starting with a note on a positive note, on an appreciative note. So he's saying your inquiries were full. Inquiries would mean that you did actually address the right questions. That's what he's saying. Your inquiries were full, and your studies were also well fulfilled. Your studies were also well fulfilled, and there is no doubt that you have prepared a great and wonderful work, the Mahabharata. So he is appreciating his inquiries, his studies, and that he has done a very nice book. He has written a very nice book by the name Mahabharata, which is full of all kinds of Vedic sequences elaborately explained. So it is not that everything Vyasadeva has done is not proper. He has done some very good work. He has addressed the right queries. He has studied the Vedic scriptures very well. He has presented the conclusion of the Vedic scriptures nicely in the book form called Mahabharata. But still the despondency is there. So the inference is, cause of despondency is not lack of scriptural knowledge. So what it means is that we may have scriptural knowledge. We may know a lot of things about scriptures, but still if we don't know the right thing, we may still feel despondent. So scriptural knowledge is not a guarantee that we will feel satisfied also in our life. So what will make us satisfied, that we will see how it unfolds in the conversation between Narad Muni and Vyasadeva. Let us move. Okay, Prabhu, can you read the fourth verse here?
Okay, Prabhuji. You also realize the eternal Brahman. You have also investigated and realized the Brahman which is eternal. then why should you lament that you have been unsuccessful? Inference, cause of despondency is not lack of realized knowledge.
I think Jivan Prabhu, your laptop as well as your mobile phone, I think both are open. That is why there is some echo there. So please check if you can switch off the laptop and continue with the phone. That might help. Please check.
For the disturbance.
No problem. Please, yeah, okay. So you also realized eternal Brahman. So in the previous verse, it was mainly about knowledge. You have learned the scripture well, you have studied the scripture well, you have presented them well in the form of Mahabharata. Now the fourth verse talks about a different aspect. You have also investigated and realized the Brahman which is eternal. You have also investigated and realized. Then why should you lament that you have been unsuccessful? So now you can see there's a difference between studying some subject matter and realizing that subject matter. So, and in fact, about realizing the subject matter also, the realization is about realizing the Brahman, the impersonal aspect of the absolute truth. So you have investigated and realized the Brahman which is eternal. Then why should you lament that you have been unsuccessful? So the inference from this verse is, cause of despondency is not lack of realized knowledge. So Vyasdev not only studied the books, not only studied the Vedas, he not only wrote very nice scripture like Mahabharata, but he also realized the Vedic knowledge. And in realizing the Vedic knowledge, the hint is mainly about realizing the impersonal aspect of the absolute truth. Here the word is used is Brahman. So even if you realize Brahman or the impersonal aspect of the absolute truth, still you will not feel satisfied. So here you can see how Narad Muni very expertly, very nicely is giving hints to Vyasdev that you did all this, but these are not the subject matters, these are not the areas which will actually make you feel satisfied. Even if you know them very well, you know them very nicely, you will not feel completely satisfied. That is how Narad Muni is building up the subject matter. So here from verse number 1 to 4, Narad Muni inquires about Vyasa's despondency, and he gives him some hint. That where could be a possibility that you could feel despondent. Okay, let us move. Prabhu, can you read this slide?
Yeah. Purport 1.5.4. Vyasa fully understood and realized Brahman. The Vedanta Sutra or Brahma Sutra compiled by Sri Vyasadeva is a full deliberation of the impersonal absolute feature, and it is accepted as the most exalted philosophical exposition in the world.
So here Prabhupada ji in his purport is writing that Vyasdev actually understood the impersonal absolute feature of the absolute truth very nicely. Here you can see Prabhupada ji is mentioning that he compiled Vedanta Sutra, which is also known as Brahma Sutra. And in this Vedanta Sutra, Vyasdev has given a full explanation of, a very nice elaborate explanation of impersonal absolute feature of the absolute truth. And this book, this work, Vedanta Sutra and Brahma Sutra, is accepted as the most exalted philosophical exposition in the world. So the point, as you would understand from these 2-3 verses, that Vyasdev had very good scriptural knowledge. He was a very learned scholar. He had written books like Mahabharata. He not only written these books, actually he realized the knowledge also. He understood the knowledge so deeply that he has written this very nice book called Vedanta Sutra. But still, after doing so much nice spiritual work, he was still feeling despondent. So that is the core and crux of these first few verses. Okay, Prabhuji, now this is the 5th verse. This probably will be your last one. Okay.
Okay, yes. Prabhuji. You are correct. Verse number 5, you are correct. Srila Vasudeva said, all you said about me is true. Despite all this, I am not satisfied. I therefore want to know about the root cause of my dissatisfaction from you. You are a man of unlimited knowledge because you were born from the body of self-born Brahma. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. Now here Vyasdev is participating in the conversation very nicely. He is responding to his spiritual master, his guru. He is saying that, sir, what you have said about me is, I agree with it. And I did so much effort, I did so much study, etc., etc. But despite all this, I am not satisfied. So what you are concluding about me, what you are explaining about me, or making an observation about me, is completely right. I fully agree with you. And now I very humbly like to pose before you a question that please kindly explain me the root cause of my dissatisfaction. And then in order to appreciate his spiritual master, showing his humility, he's also glorifying his spiritual master. He's saying, you are a man of unlimited knowledge because you are born from the body of self-born Brahma. So Narad Muni is the son of Lord Brahma, and in this verse it is being mentioned that you are son of Brahmaji. So you are coming from a very exalted lineage, and you are man of unlimited knowledge. So kindly, please help me remove my root cause of my dissatisfaction. Please tell me why I am dissatisfied. Okay, now we give chance to Rakesh Prabhu. Can you please read the slides present before you?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay.
You know everything. You know everything mysterious, since you worship the Lord, who is number one, the original person, second, the controller of material and spiritual worlds, and third, unattached to the modes.
So he continued to explain or extend his glorification of his guru further. In the previous verse, he mentions that you are the son of Lord Brahma, you are not an ordinary person, you know everything. And then he further elaborates, you know everything mysterious. And why do you know everything mysterious? Because you worship the Lord, who is the original person, who is the controller of material and spiritual worlds, and you are also unattached to the modes. So like this, further he glorifies his spiritual master and humbly submits before his teacher to know the root cause of his problem. Okay, Prabhu. Further, 7th.
You are all pervasive. Like the sun, you travel everywhere, and like the air, you penetrate the internal region of everyone. You are like the all-pervasive super soul and witness. Therefore, please find the deficiency in me.
So further glorification, and now the glorification takes the form of two analogies. So one analogy is that he is saying that you are like a sun. Like a sun means, say everywhere on earth we go, we find that sun is everywhere. So similarly, Narad Muni also travels everywhere. He knows and he sees everything because he travels everywhere. So the analogy given is the sun. And like sun also, which is present everywhere, there is another element which is present everywhere, and that is called air. And like the air, you penetrate the internal region of everyone. So air and sun are all pervasive, and like sun and air, you, my dear spiritual master, my dear guru, you are also all pervasive. You are also present everywhere. And then the third comparison is you are like the all pervasive super soul. So sun, air, and the third comparison is super soul. Super soul would mean Paramatma in the heart. So Paramatma in the heart knows everything. He knows about the Paramatma knows about everything and knows about every individual Jivatma also. So like this, Vyasdev is glorifying his spiritual master that you know everything like sun, the air, and the super soul. Therefore, please, because you are the knower of everything, please find the deficiency in me. Okay, Prabhu, please proceed.
Narada detects two defects. Sri Narada said, "You have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord is considered worthless. Although great sage, you have very broadly described the four purusharths, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. You have not described the glories of the Supreme Personality Vasudeva."
Yes, Prabhuji. Very nice. Thank you. Narad now detects two defects. Now you will see what are the two defects. Narad said, "You have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord is considered worthless." So, defect number one is that you have not broadcast the sublime, spotless glories of personality of Godhead. So, that is defect number one. In verse number 8, this first defect is mentioned. And in the verse number 9, the second defect is mentioned. What is that second defect? Although great sage, you have broadly described the four purusharth, dharma, artha, kam and moksha. You have not described the glories of Supreme Personality Vasudev sufficiently. So one defect is that you have you have not described, actually broadcast the glories of the personality of Godhead. And the second defect is that instead of defining the glories of or broadcasting the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you actually overemphasized, broadly described the four purusharths. So you have described about dharma, artha, kama and moksha, but you have not sufficiently described the glories of Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is Lord Vasudeva. So these are the two defects. Now let us see how Srila Prabhupada in the purports, through the description in the purports, expands upon these points in these two verses. Prabhuji, read one by one. Let us read one first and then we go
Yes.
to the second one.
Why did the Lord expand himself as living beings? The Lord has expanded himself as living beings in order to accept loving service from them. And this alone can satisfy both the Lord and the living beings.
Yes, Prabhu. Okay. So it's a very important point Prabhupada mentions here. He is going to the fundamental of, or the basic of, why the Lord expands himself as living beings. Living beings means it is being talked about like myself, yourself, other living entities in the world. So the Lord has expanded himself as living beings in order to accept loving service from them. And this alone can satisfy both the Lord and the living beings. So it's a fundamental idea that Srila Prabhupada is presenting here in the purport, that why in first place there are living beings in this material world or in the spiritual world. It is mainly because Lord feels delighted when he accepts loving devotional service from the living beings, and living beings also feel delighted when they serve the Lord in loving devotional service. So if Narad Muni is mentioning to Vyasdev, his disciple, my dear disciple, if you forget about this fundamental aspect which satisfies the living entity and the Lord, both of them, and you are describing in your literature everything else except all this, everything except about the loving devotional service, then dissatisfaction is bound to happen. You will also feel dissatisfied, and the people who will read that literature which is devoid of sufficient explanation about loving devotional service of the Lord, they will also feel dissatisfied. So here Prabhupada is addressing this point in the purport by addressing it at a very root cause level, at a very fundamental level. Okay, now go to the next one, Prabhuji.
Vedanta Sutra is insufficient. Such a scholar as Vyasdeva has completed many expansions of the Vedic literatures, ending with the Vedanta philosophy, but none of them have been written directly glorifying the personality of Godhead.
Yes. Now, the reason further is being explained that Vyasdev was a very scholarly person, and he wrote this very very complicated, I would say, book called Vedanta Sutra, ending with the Vedanta philosophy. But none of them have been written directly glorifying the personality of Godhead. So there was no book that he could identify which directly glorifies the personality of Godhead. Directly glorify means in unambiguous terms. Unambiguous terms means that you write a book in which you write something about karma yoga, you write about jnana yoga, you write about yoga siddhis, you write about bhakti also, but you write all of them together, but you don't pinpoint, you don't identify one as the better one among the others. So you write so many things that people actually are not able to identify which one is the topmost, which one is the best. So Vyasdev had written exalted literature like Vedanta philosophy, but has not written even a single book where it has been directly glorifying the personality of Godhead. So this is another point that Prabhupada makes in the purport. Now the third one, Prabhuji.
Realization of impersonal Brahman and Paramatma not supremely blissful. The absolute realized as impersonal Brahman or localized supersoul, Paramatma, is less productive of transcendental bliss than the supreme personal realization of his glories.
Yes, Prabhuji. So here you can see the comparison of various realizations is being made. Like the verse that we were studying today in the Shloka memorization class, Brahmeti, Paramatmeti and Bhagavan iti Shabdyate. So one aspect of realization is the level of realization at the level of Brahman. The next higher level of realization is the level of at the level of Paramatma, and the topmost is the Bhagavan realization. So it is not that in the purport Prabhupada does not mean that one who realizes Brahman does not feel bliss. He also feels bliss, but the person who realizes Paramatma also feels bliss, but that bliss is less productive. The absolute realized as impersonal Brahman or localized supersoul as Paramatma is less productive. Less productive does not mean not productive, does not produce any bliss. It means that it produces bliss but less than the supreme personal realization of his glories. So actually the stage of impersonal Brahman realization and realization of localized supersoul or the Paramatma realization, they are not also small realization. The person or the spiritual person who has these realizations of Brahman and Paramatma is certainly a very accomplished person in all respects. But even if they are realized in Brahman and Paramatma level, Bhagavan realization is the topmost realization which gives the topmost transcendental bliss. That is the meaning here in the purport by Prabhupada. Okay, two more points in the purport. Yes, Prabhu.
Overemphasis of four Purusharth. He has certainly, as a matter of course, given descriptions of the glories of the Lord, Sri Krishna, but not as many as given to religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and salvation.
So actually this is dharma. Religiosity means dharma. Economic development means artha. Sense gratification means kama. And salvation means moksha. So four purusharthas. So four purusharthas means that when a living entity comes in this material world, so the living entity has desires. So because living entity has desires, he does some purusharth, he does some work to generate some artha. Artha means economic development, and by generating this economic artha, he fulfills his desires. And all these economic development and sense gratification work activities that the living entity does has to be done in a religious way according to the codes of dharma. And then ultimately, by doing this economic development, sense gratification in a dharmic way, the ultimate object of this living entity is to gain moksha, which is salvation. So here Prabhupada is making a point here which is telling that Narad Muni is trying to tell to Vyasdev that you overemphasized on four purusharthas, that you overemphasized on the dharma aspect, you overemphasized on the artha aspect, you overemphasized on the kama aspect and you overemphasized on the moksha aspect, that is liberation aspect, salvation aspect. He has certainly, as a matter of course, given descriptions of the glories of the Lord Krishna, but not as many as given to dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. So here, like you see, we have discussed that Srila Vyasdev has written this book called Mahabharata. So in Mahabharata only, there is Srimad Bhagavad Gita there. So Bhagavad Gita is there in the somewhere in the middle of Mahabharata. But apart from Bhagavad Gita, there are so many other things, so many other themes are given in Mahabharata, which are related to dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, but not has been given sufficiently elaborately about the glories, about the activities of Lord Krishna, that you have given more emphasis on dharma, artha, kama, and moksha compared to the emphasis you should have given to the glories of Lord Shri Krishna. So overemphasis on 4 Purushartha. Okay. Then this one, last one, Prabhu.
Moksha is not as satisfying as bhakti. Liberation is the last item in the line of performing religiosity, etc. This stage is called the Brahma Bhut stage. After attainment of this stage, one is satisfied. But satisfaction is the beginning of transcendental bliss.
Okay. Now you can see here in dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, the topmost goal is moksha. Topmost goal is moksha. But then in this point, in this 5th point here, from this purport, 2 purports of 8th and 9th, Prabhupada is saying that moksha is not as satisfying as bhakti. So here Prabhupada is contrasting liberation compared to bhakti. Liberation is the last item in the line of performing dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. This stage is called Brahma Bhuta stage. This stage is called Brahma Bhuta stage. Now let me ask the class, which verse in Bhagavad Gita talks about Brahma Bhuta stage?
Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na Shosati na Kankshati.
Very nice. Yeah. Okay. What is the second line? Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na Shosati na Kankshati.
Forgot, Prabhu.
Okay. In the second line, the Lord says, Mad Bhaktim Labhate Param. Mad Bhaktim Labhate Param. So what does it mean is that once a living entity comes to the stage of Brahma Bhuta, then na shochati na kankshati. Now he will neither lament, neither hanker for anything. So he's satisfied. He's compare like the life of or the level of consciousness of a living entity in a form of a graph. So compare y-axis. So in y-axis there is a negative axis downwards. Then after the negative axis there is origin 0, which is neutral, and there comes the positive axis. So here, when the living entities is tormented by lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion, envy, when the heart is not purified, there is lust, anger, greed. So this is something called as negative axis. But by doing the purification, by doing proper nishkam karma yoga, jnana yoga, etc., the living entity can purify oneself and come to the neutral stage. So this neutral stage is known as Brahma Bhuta. After attainment of this stage, one is satisfied. So one is satisfied means Brahma Bhuta Prasanna Atma, na shochati na kankshati. So he will neither lament and nor feel any hankering. He is Prasanna Atma. Prasanna Atma means there is some degree of happiness there in Brahma Bhuta stage also. It is not that it is completely devoid of happiness. So some degree of happiness is there in Brahma Bhuta stage. One is satisfied, but this satisfaction is the beginning of transcendental bliss. There is more to it. Now that is why it is being mentioned in the 18.54, the Brahma Bhuta Prasanna Atma na Shochati na Kankshati. In the end, the Lord Krishna says, Mad Bhaktim Labhate Param. Mad Bhaktim Labhate Param means that once the devotee, once this person who has attained Brahma Bhuta Prasanna Atma stage, then he is ready to take the process of my devotional service. And after he attains this devotional service, he does not need anything more. So this Brahma Bhuta stage is only the beginning of transcendental bliss. Beginning of transcendental bliss means on the y-axis he is at the neutral position, and the moment he goes to bhakti, then it is the positive axis. That's where the transcendental bliss continues to increase further and further, like that. So moksha is not as satisfying as bhakti. So this is the contrast Srila Prabhupada is presenting through his purports. Okay, Prabhuji. Now we have some Sanskrit for recitation. So Rakesh ji, please repeat after me. This is a very important verse. Probably we will remember also this in our verse memorization classes. न यद्वचश्चित्रपदं हरेर्यशो
न यद्वचश्चित्रपदं हरेर्यशो
जगत्पवित्रं प्रगृणीत कर्हि चेत्
जगत्पवित्रं प्रगृहीत कर्हि चित्
तद्वायसं तीर्थम् उशन्ति मानसा
तदवायसं तीर्थम् उसन्ति मानसा
न यत्र हंसा निर्मन्त्य उशिक्षया
न यत्र हंसा निर्मन्ति उषिक अक्षया
न यत्र हंसा निर्मन्त्युशिक्षयाः
न यत्र हंसा निर्मन्ति उष्कहक्षया
निर्मन्ति उशिक्षयाः.
निर्मन्ति उशिक्षया.
Yes, Prabhu. Okay. Let us see line by line. So here now you will see Narad Muni is now have identified the two defects. Now he is further identifying, he's taking the discussion further, because Vyasdev is an author and his primary duty or primary activity has been writing books. So he has identified the two defects in general, that you have not glorified the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then you have actually overemphasized on the four Purusharthas. So those are the two defects he has already identified. Now he is identifying the two different type of literature. Now, one type of literature is materialistic literature, and the second type of literature is spiritual literature. So the qualities of materialistic literature are being mentioned in this particular verse. So he's saying, Na yad vachas chitrapadam harer yasho. Chitrapadam. Chitrapadam means actually any literature which is written in a very beautiful manner. Chitrapadam. Very beautiful. How our literature becomes very beautiful? Literature become very beautiful if it has been written in a very right language. There are no grammatical mistakes. There are no punctuation mistakes. The language used in the literature is very exalted. There is a lot of ornamentation, which in Hindi we call it alankar. There is a lot of beautiful use of meters, poetry, etc. has been done. That is called a beautiful literature. So that is what it means is Chitrapadam. Chitrapadam means attractive verses, very beautiful verses, very nice poetry. Work whose attractive verses do not sing the glories of the Lord. Harer Yasho. Harer means Lord Hari. Yash means glories, which do not sing the glories of the Lord. And what is so special about the glories of the Lord? Jagat Pavitram Pragranit Karhichit. Jagat Pavitram. Jagat Pavitram means the glories of the Lord actually can sanctify the whole universe. So if you sing the glories of the Lord, it has the capability of purifying everything else in the world. So that kind of glories, as if it is not present in any literature, although the literature is Chitrapadam. Chitrapadam means it is full of very attractive verses. It is top class in terms of its literary content, but it does not contain the glories of the Lord, which actually is capable of purifying the whole world. Then what actually does it mean? What kind of literature does it mean? How does devotee look at such literature? So here it is mentioned, Tadvayasam tirtham ushanti. Tadvayasam tirtham. Tadvayasam tirtham means, Vayasam actually means crows. Crows means in Hindi we call them kauwa. Crows means kauva. Tad vayasam tirtham. So such literature, such books are actually vayasam tirtham. Vayasam tirtham means a place where only crows reside. Only crows reside. What does it mean? So, can anyone give me a hint or an answer? What typical places where we see crows in this world? Can someone tell me? Any idea?
Sorry, Prabhuji.
Yeah, Prabhuji.
Pitru karyas are done.
Sorry, Mataji. Where do we find crows?
The Pitru karyas.
Wherever
in the
there
dam.
is filth, we find crows. Wherever
Negative-
bodies
negativity
and
prevails.
Sorry, one by one. Maybe Vasudevan Prabhu, can you speak once now?
I'm saying wherever there are filth, wherever there are dead bodies, crows are found there.
Where there is filth, there is
Yes.
garbage. So
Garbage.
area which is not clean, which is dirty, where a lot of kuda karkat, that's where you will typically find crows wandering around. So that is called actually Vayasam Tirtham. That place is something like pilgrimage places of crows. And what kind of places? That kind of literature which does not glorify the Lord, although that literature has lot of good literary content. And then Nayatra Hamsa Nirmantya Ushikshaya. Nayatra Hamsa Nirmantya Ushikshaya. So what does it mean? Hamsa. So Hamsa is different from crows. Where do you find Hamsa? Crows are found in places where there is garbage. And where do you find swan or Hamsa?
Manasarovar Lake.
Lakes.
Pure lakes, in
Lakes.
clean
Lakes.
water lakes.
Or you can say that at places where there is actually natural beauty, where there is a nice lake, neat and clean lake, there you will find Hamsas are actually floating in that lake. So Nayatra Hamsa Nirmantya Ushikshaya. So saintly derive no pleasure from them. Saintly devotees who are like Hamsas, they like to go places where there are glories of the Lord present. They don't like to go places where there are literature which does not define the glories of the Lord. And such places are being compared to places of pilgrimage of crows. Vayasam Tirtham. So that is the quality of materialistic literature. Okay, let us read something from the purport by Prabhupada. So Prabhuji, Rakesh Prabhu, can you proceed?
Analogy for decorative language in materialistic literature. They are full of subject matter described in decorative language, full of mundane similes and metaphorical arrangements. Yet, with all that, they do not glorify the Lord. Such poetry and prose on any subject matter is considered decoration of a dead body.
Yes. Now you see, one analogy has been given by Vyasadeva himself. What is that? Vayasam Tirtham in Srimad Bhagavatam, or I would say Narad Muni himself. Vayasam Tirtham, pilgrimage of crows. Another analogy has been given by Prabhupada ji in the purport. He's saying that this kind of literature is actually nothing but decoration of dead body. Decoration of dead body means what? Like when some person dies, we try to put garland on the dead body. We try to put some flowers. We try to decorate the body with some nice clothes, etc. So in these literature which is not glorifying the Lord, although there are a lot of decorative language with full of similes. Similes means there is alankar. There is comparison with some nice analogy from nature, nice comparison from some object in the beautiful object in the nature. Metaphorical arrangements. Metaphorical in Hindi we call it rupak. Some nice comparison given in the form of metaphors. But these metaphors and these similes are similar to the flowers or the decoration on the dead body. So this is one analogy, hard-hitting analogy that Prabhupada is giving, that how a devotee, how a person who is engaged in the devotional service of the Lord should look towards these mundane literature, mundane talks. Okay, next one, Prabhuji.
Examples of followers of materialistic literature. Social, literary men, scientists, mundane poets, theoretical philosophers, and politicians who are completely absorbed in the material advancement of sense pleasure are all dolls of the material energy. They take pleasure in a place where rejected subject matters are thrown. According to Swami Sridhara, this is the pleasure of the prostitute hunters.
Now you see another hard-hitting analogy: prostitute hunters. So identifying who are these people who take pride and pleasure in these mundane literature, which is devoid of the glories of the Lord. Social literary men, scientists, mundane poets, theoretical philosophers, and politicians who are completely absorbed in the material advancement of sense pleasure are all dolls of material energy. They take pleasure in a place where rejected subject matters are thrown. According to Swami Sridhar, this is something like prostitute hunters. So you can see there are very hard hitting terms, various acharyas, our Prabhupada ji and Sridhar Swami has given the analogy of literature which does not contain the glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now you see here there is a pictorial depiction of places where crows are found and where swan like devotees are actually found. So this is just to give you a little more food for thought, this picture. Okay, now Narad Muni explains about the glories of transcendental literature. So this is another very nice verse, transcendental literature. Prabhuji, can you please repeat after me?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Just a minute. तद्वाग विसर्गो जनताघ विप्लवो
तदवाग विसर्गो जनताग विप्लवो
यस्मिन् प्रतिश्लोकम् अबध्यवत्यपि
यस्मिन् प्रतिश्लोकन् अबद्धवति अपि
नामानि अनन्तस्य यशो अंकितानि यत्
नामानि अनन्तस्य यशो अंकितानि यत्
शृण्वन्ति गायन्ति गृह्णन्ति साधवाः
शृण्वन्ति गायन्ति गृह्णन्ति साधवाः.
Very nice. Okay. So Tadvag Visargo Janatagha Viplavo. Now here you can see the glories of transcendental literature is being narrated. And what is the first glory? That which brings revolution. Revolution means Viplav. Viplavo. In the impious lives of world's misdirected civilization. Impious lives. Janata Agha. Agha means sinful. Like you see, there was a demon in Krishna Lila, Aghasur. So Agha means sinful. One of the names of the Lord Krishna is Amogha. Amogha. Amogha means which does not have any sins. Amogha Lila. So whose Lila is Amogha, whose Lila is without any sins. So Agha means sin. Tad Vag. Vag means that literature, that Vani, that transcendental sound. Tad Vag Visargo Janata Agha Viplavo. That which brings revolution in the impious lives of world's misdirected civilization. Janata Agha, sinful Janata. Then Yasmin Pratishlokam Abadhavatyapi. Pratishlokam. Even if each and every verse of such literature is Abadhavatyapi. Abadhavatyapi means has not been composed very perfectly. There are grammatical mistakes, there are some mistakes in explaining in punctuation marks, there are mistakes in properly elaborating on them, etc., which may be not perfectly composed. Yasmin pratishlokam abadhavatyapi. Then but namani anantasya yasho ankitani yat. But it is composed with the names namani. And then glories yasho ankitani. Ankitani means ankit karna. Ankit means you underline or underscore yash, which is the main subject matter. Actually is the yash, the glorification of the Lord, the glorification of his names, his forms, etc. Of whom? Of Ananta. Anantasya. Anantasya means the unlimited Lord. Although this literature is not perfectly composed, but it is composed with the names, glories, forms of the unlimited Lord. Then such literature is heard, Shranavanti, is sung, Gayanti, and Grananti. Grananti means accepted By whom? By sadhava. And sadhava means what? By purified men who are thoroughly honest. By purified men who are thoroughly honest. So, this is the quality of the transcendental literature. Now, let us see some of the very nice purport points by Prabhupada. Prabhuji, can you read?
Yes, Prabhuji. Spirit of cooperation is needed. When there is fire in a house, the inmates of the house go out to get help from the neighbors, who may be foreigners, and yet without knowing the language, the victims of the fire express themselves, and the neighbors understand the need, even though not expressed in the same language. The same spirit of cooperation is needed to broadcast this transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the polluted atmosphere of the world.
Yes, Prabhu. Just wait here. Now, you see a very nice analogy Prabhupada is giving here. So, he's presenting a situation where, for example, there are two houses. In one house, there's a person who is living from India, and there's another person in the second house who is living somewhere in Russia. So one Russian is living, and then in the another house, one Indian is living. Now, Indian does not understand Russian, and the Russian does not understand Indian language. Now, what happens is that in the house of this Russian person, there is fire, and the Russian person rushes out from his house and he starts shouting in front of the house of this Indian person. Hey, whatever in Russian he may be crying out, that my house is actually burning. So the Indian person may not completely understand the Russian person, that what exactly he's saying, but by his gestures, by his expressions, by his intention, the Indian can actually make out that he's asking for help. He's asking for that come with me, come help me, bring some bucket of water, throw on my house which is burning, So this analogy is being given by Prabhupada. Now, why this analogy is important? This analogy is important for us who are students of this Vedic knowledge, who are students of these books like Srimad Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So we many times when we are about to when we want to go out for preaching, or when we want to start something that we want to preach, or when we want to explain the subject matter of Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita to a particular audience, we sometimes fear, oh, what will happen if my message is not very nice, if I am not able to present it very nicely, if I am not able to tell this message to these people in a nice language, etc., etc. We fear that. So here Srila Prabhupada is trying to alleviate that kind of fear. Just think that the whole world is actually burning with fire of materialism. Everywhere there is a fire of materialism burning out. And the only solution that we have is to propagate this message of Srimad Bhagavatam. And if in this circumstance we start to worry about whether we will be able to present it nicely, not able to present nicely, etc., etc., then it will not help. What will happen is that when we go out to these people and try to present this message in whatever way we are able to present, the people will understand our language, the people will understand our intentions, and they will accept this message. So Prabhupada is saying that this spirit of cooperation is needed. This spirit of cooperation is needed. And I would also request to all the devotees who are present in this class that this spirit of cooperation is needed. So don't shy away from presenting this message of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam to your colleagues, to your family members, to whomever you come across, because this message is the only remedy to cure the disease of materialism and to make people satisfied in this world. So that is what this important point from the purport means. Okay. Now the next point, Prabhuji.
Technique, not the language. After all, it is a technical science of spiritual values, and thus we are concerned with the techniques and not with the language. If the techniques of this great literature are understood by the people of the world, there will be success.
So technique means what we practice. We practice Shravanam, Kirtanam. That is the main techniques that are the main limbs of bhakti. In the course that we did on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, How many techniques did we learn? How many limbs of bhakti did we learn? Can anyone remember? Can anyone?
64.
64 limbs of bhakti we have remembered. And are those 64 limbs very difficult to understand? No, they are very simple to understand. For example, we perform Aarti of the Lord. That is one limb of bhakti. We make garlands for the Lord. That is another limb of bhakti. We hear the Krishna Katha. We hear the pastimes of the Lord. That is another limb of bhakti. We go to the pilgrimages. We'll go to the Dham. We read Srimad Bhagavatam. We serve the devotees. We do chanting of the holy name. So these are all techniques. These are all the examples of practices and techniques. So here Srila Prabhupada is saying, after all, this is a technical science. This is a science of techniques. This is a sign of practices. Krishnanu Anushilanam. Krishna Anushilanam. That is the definition we studied about pure bhakti, Uttama bhakti. Anushilanam. Anushilanam means activities. We need to do activities. And these activities have been very nicely explained in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And more or less, many people know these techniques, even if they have not read Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So Prabhupada is saying that it is a technical science of spiritual values. And thus we are concerned with the techniques and not with the language. If the technique of this great literature are understood by the people of the world, there will be success. So if they know how to dance in Mangalarti, they know how to do offering of the Lord, they know how to hear Krishna Katha. All these techniques, if they understand, then the job is done. They need not worry a lot about whether their language is right, not right, etc., etc. Simply they need to do some chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra, offer the food to the Lord before eating, associate with the devotees, go for Dham Yatra. All this they have to do. That's all. That is what Srila Prabhupada is saying. Technique is important, not the language. Okay. Yes, Prabhu, the third one.
Bhagavatam is like sugar candy to cure the jaundice. In the beginning, they may not like it because one suffering from jaundice is reluctant to take sugar candy. But we should know that sugar candy is the only remedy for jaundice. Okay, now can you tell me from where this analogy is coming, from which book we have studied in our classes, where this analogy is coming, sugar candy and jaundice?
It's from Nectar
Upadeshamrit.
Upadeshamrit, very nice. I think it's a 6th verse probably, if I recall correctly, 6th or 7th one. So in that verse, Rupa Goswami is saying that materialistic people, they may not like spiritual practices in the beginning. If you go to some person who is a materialistic person and you ask him, sir, please can you take this book, can you come to our classes and hear some message from Srimad Bhagavatam? So the person may actually repel. He may go away. I don't want to come to these classes. These are not, I don't like it. I don't have the interest, etc., etc. People have all kind of reasons to not come to the classes. But then what Prabhupada is saying, that they may not be interested in the beginning. But we should understand that they may not like it because one suffering from jaundice is reluctant to take sugar candy. So they may not like it, but we should know that sugar candy is the only remedy for jaundice. So although they may not like it, we need to find out creative ways to engage them in some activity like devotional service, so that ultimately they develop some taste. And once they develop some little taste, then this sugar candies actually can cure the materialistic disease which is compared to as jaundice by Srila Rupa Goswami in Upadeshamrita. So Bhagavatam is like sugar candy to cure the jaundice of the materialistic world. Okay, Prabhuji. Now I would give the floor to Vrindavaneshwari Mataji. Thank you very much, Rakesh ji. Mataji, are you ready? Vrindavaneshwari Mataji, will you be reading together with me? You are on mute, Mataji. I cannot hear you. Vrindavaneshwari Mataji, can you hear? Okay. Maybe we again give to... Oh, no, she's available. Okay. Mataji, can you just say something so that we know your mic is working properly?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Shall I read, Prabhu?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Now both are available. So I think that was Anuradha Mataji.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. So Vrindavaneshwari Mataji, just give me 1 minute. I'll give you chance a little later. Anuradha
Oh,
Mataji, I'll ask her.
okay. Okay.
Okay. So now the theme of this verse is Jnana and Karma without Bhakti are fruitless. Okay, Anuradha Mataji, please repeat after me.
Yes, Prabhu.
Naishkarmyam appi achyuta bhava varjitam.
Naishkarmyam api achyuta bhava varjitam.
न शोभते ज्ञानम अलम निरंजनम
Na shobhite gnanam alam niranjanam.
कुतः पुनः शश्वत अभद्रम ईश्वरे
Kuta puna sashvata abhatram ishvare.
न चार्पितं कर्म यद्यप्यकारणम
Na charpitam karma yad api akaranam.
Yes, Madhu. Okay. So thank you very much. Now here you will see the first two lines are summarized in this word, in this first bullet. Naishkarmyam appya achyuta bhava varjitam na shobhate jnanam alam niranjanam. Naishkarmyam. So Naishkarmyam means what? Now you will see there are three terminologies. One is Sakam karma, then there is Nishkam karma, and the third one is Naishkarmya. So what is the difference between Sakam karma, Nishkam karma and Naishkarmya? So let me ask the devotees. So what is Sakam karma? Can anyone explain to me?
Fruitive action.
Fruitive action.
Action motivated with the results, like with the fruits.
With the fruits. So when we do some action where we are expecting some fruits and we are actually attached to the fruits. We are attached to those fruits. That is called Sakam karma. What is Nishkam karma? What is Nishkam karma?
When you're not attached to the fruits.
When we are not attached to the fruits. Nishkam means there is no desire for the fruits, or there is actually desire for the fruits are obtained, but we are not attached to the fruits. That is called Nishkam karma. So Sakam karma, Nishkam karma. And then there is a third term which is known as Akarma. What is Akarma?
Akarma is like the action done for the pleasure of Krishna.
Yeah, that is okay. That is one definition, but I'd like to know a little more, I would say fundamental, without bringing Krishna into picture. What is Akarma? What is Akarma in terms of reaction?
No reactions, no fruits.
No reactions, no karma. So this Akarma, another term for this Akarma is called Naishkarmya. Another term for Akarma is Naishkarmya. So in Naishkarmya, when we do Akarma, there is no reaction awaiting us. There is no fruitive reaction awaiting us. The person who does this Naishkarmya or who does this Akarma. Now somebody may ask, is there any reaction in Nishkam karma? Is there any, what is wrong with Nishkam karma? What is the difference between Nishkam karma and Akarma? Can anyone explain what is the difference between Nishkam karma and Akarma? Akarma, there is no reaction. Nishkam karma, we have understood that it is action done with selflessness, with the feeling of dutifulness, with selflessness, for the benefit of others.
There will be fruits anyhow. Maybe there will be punyas. So there will be fruits for Nishkam karma.
So will there be reaction in Nishkam karma?
Well, not inauspicious reaction. There will be some auspicious reaction, like person may reach up to heaven, Swarga, upper planets. But again, when the fruits are exhausted, he has to come back again to the...
Okay. I think it was a good explanation, but let me give you a little more elaborate detail in which you will understand very nicely between Nishkam karma and Naishkarmya. So Nishkam karma, the example I can give is that, say for example, a philanthropist he is distributing food to the poor. He is doing it very dutifully. He is doing for the welfare of the poor. So that is called Nishkam Karma. Then there is another example of Nashkarmya or Akarma, which means, like for example, a devotee distributing prasad to the poor. A devotee distributing prasad to the poor. Now, what is the difference between the two activities? What is the fundamental difference between the two activities? Which one is higher? Which one is lower?
Prasadam distribution
is higher.
Yes.
And the other philanthropist distributing food to the poor is at a lower platform.
Yes.
Now, why it is at lower platform and why the other one is at the higher platform?
Because the prasadam distribution will impart bhakti to the person who receives it.
Okay.
But the philanthropist action no doubt will bring some benefit to the benefactor, but will not elevate his consciousness to higher levels.
Yeah, so explanation wise, Mataji, you are done very nicely. It is correct explanation, but let me give it to you a little more alternative explanation.
Yes.
So what is the fundamental difference between the two activities is that in Nishkam Karma, when the philanthropist is distributing food to the poor, there is a tendency in the philanthropist where he can consider that actually I am helping the poor. So there is a possibility of a pride in that philanthropist that actually because of me these poor people are getting some benefit.
Yes.
But in the Nashkarmya, in the second example where the devotee is distributing prasad to the poor, what is the consciousness of the devotee? Consciousness of the devotee is actually this prasad is actually coming from the Lord, and these poor people are also the children of the Lord. I am also child of the Lord. I am also connected with the Lord. So here in that second activity, the consciousness is always focused where the Lord is at the center. So there in the second example, there is no question of any ahankar, any pride. But in the first example, there is a egoistic, there is a ego or subconscious ego, there is egoistic tendency is there that actually I am helping the poor. But in the second example, that is not the case. So that is why Nashkarmya. So this word Nashkarmya you will also find in Bhagavatam appearing in many places. So we need to understand the difference between Sakam Karma, Nishkam Karma and Nashkarmya. So here you will see here in this line, Nashkarmyam api achyuta bhava varjitam na shobhate jnanam alam niranjanam. So knowledge of self-realization, even though free from all material affinity but devoid of conception of Lord Achyuta, does not work well. Now here Nashkarmya can also be of several types. Nashkarmya can also be of several types. One type of Nashkarmya could be where the person is doing this distribution of food but not considering Lord Krishna in the center. However, he is considering impersonal Brahman or liberation at the center. So it is having the element of transcendence. It is having the element of transcendence, but it is not connected with Lord Krishna directly. So that kind of Nashkarmya is being mentioned here, where knowledge of self-realization is there, even though free from material affinity, but devoid of conception of Lord Achyuta, does not look well. Does not look well. So even if you are doing Nashkarmya, but that Nashkarmya also is not involving the concept of Lord Achyuta. Api Achyuta bhava varjitam. Achyuta bhava varjitam. Varjitam means devoid of. That is na shobhate. That kind of jnana and that kind of consciousness is also na shobhate. Now, if Nashkarmya is not without the conception of Lord Achyuta is rejected, then what to speak of Sakam Karma? And then what to speak of Sakam Karma? Then Kutaha Punaha Shashvat Abhadram Ishware Na Cha Arpitam Karma Yad Api Akaranam. Even if you do some fruitive activity, even then what to speak of Sakam Karma? What to speak of sakam karma, which always causes suffering. Shashwat abhadram. Shashwat abhadram means always causing suffering. Shashwat means always. Abhadram means not good, means suffering. What then to speak of sakam karma, which always causes suffering when not offered to the Lord? Na cha arpitam akaranam. Na cha arpitam karma yad appi akaranam. So here you can see, dear devotees, there has been a contrast given that if we are doing neshkarmya, but without the concept of Lord Krishna in the center, then that is also rejected by Bhagavatam. That does not look well. Na shobhate, na shobhate. And then if neshkarmya is rejected, then sakam karma is by default rejected. The sakam karma does not hold ground anywhere else, which is always causing suffering. So that is the purport of this verse. So I hope this verse is very clear to you. The difference between three items, sakam karma, nishkam karma and neshkarmya, should be very crystal clear to you. If it is not clear, then please ask the question after the end of the class.
Very well explained, Prabhuji.
Okay, nicely. Thank you, Mataji. Now we go to the purport point. Mataji, Anuradha Mataji, please can you recite this? Can you read this?
Yes, Prabhu. 1 minute. Okay, Prabhu.
Yes,
Jnana and karma are useless without bhakti. Not only are the words important, if there is no bhakti, the work is useless. The realization coming from the words of the Vedas is useless without bhakti. What to speak of mere spiritual knowledge and what to speak of nishkama karma and so much more. Sakama karma is useless without bhakti.
Yes. Now,
Sarartha Darshini.
Yeah, so this is from Sarartha Darshini by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Now here you will see in this particular verse there are so many other items have been mentioned here. You see, now let me. Not only the words are important. Words are important means in the previous verses the language was mentioned. So the language is not very important. That's what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying. If there is no bhakti, even the work is useless. That is what we discussed. Sakam karma is useless without bhakti. Nishkam karma is useless without bhakti. Even neshkarmya is useless without bhakti. So sakam karma with bhakti means what? You do some work with some fruitive motive, but whenever you get the fruit, you give some part to the Lord. That is sakam karma with bhakti. Nishkam karma with bhakti means you do some nishkam karma and whatever result you obtain, you offer it to the Lord. That is nishkam karma with bhakti. And neshkarmya with bhakti, we just discussed one example, the food being delivered with Lord in the center of consciousness. That is neshkarmya with bhakti. So if there is, even if the words are there, if the books are written without bhakti in the center, then that is useless. Even work without bhakti is useless. Then realization coming from the words of the Vedas is useless without bhakti. So if you read Vedas, but the realization is without bhakti, that is also useless. Then what to speak of mere scriptural knowledge? So even if you are reading Vedas without realization, simply reading verses, memorizing verses, that is also useless. And then it is said, then what to speak of nishkam karma and what to speak of sakam karma. So ultimately, unless and until there is bhakti, some degree of bhakti in your activities, in your studies, in your realization, that activity actually is useless. That is the main message from this verse. Jnana and karma are useless without bhakti. Okay. Anuradha Mataji, this is for you.
Yes, please.
Now there is some glorification of Vyasdev. Narad Muni does some glorification of Vyasdev. Atho Mahabhaga Bhavan Amoghadrek.
Atho Mahabhaga Bhavan Amoghadrek.
Shuchi Shrava Satya Rato Dhrita Dhritavrata.
Suchi Shrava Satya Rato Dhritavrataha.
Urukramasyakhila bandhamuktaye.
Urukramasya ila bandhamuktaye.
Samadhina anusmara tad vicheshtitam.
Samadhinanusmara tada vischititam.
Tad vicheshtitam.
Tada
Vicheshtitam.
visestitam.
Yes, Mataji. So here, now Narad Muni actually is now glorifying Vyasdev. He's saying that you are fortunate, Mahabhaga, with perfect vision, Amogha Drik. So you have perfect vision and you are very fortunate. Then Shuchi Shravaha Satyarato Dridhavrata. You have a spotless vision, Shuchi Shravaha. You are truthful, you are Satyarata, and you are with firm vows, Dridhavrata. So these are various qualities of Vyasdev have been described: Mahabhaga, Amogadrik, Shuchi Shravaha, Satyarato, and Dridhavrataha. Thus, because you have so nice qualities with you, thus you can think of the Lord's pastimes in trance for the liberation of everyone. Liberation of every means Akhila Bandha Muktaye. Urukramasya Akhila. Urukrama is another name of Lord Krishna. Urukrama means the Lord who does very lot of adventurous activities. Adventurous activities means he lifts Govardhan hill on his little tiny finger. He kills so many ferocious demons. He eats the forest fire. So these are Urukrama. This is another name of Lord Krishna, Urukrama. So Urukramasya khila bandha muktaye. Thus you can think of Lord pastimes in trance. Samadhina anusmara. Samadhina means trance. Anusmara means remember. You can remember the Lord pastimes in trance and for the liberation of everyone. So Narad Muni is actually glorifying Vyasdev that actually you can do it. You can do it. You can glorify the Lord. You have all those qualities available in you. You are fully competent. You are fully qualified. That's what he's trying to say. Okay. Now I give chance to Vrindavaneshwari Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Mataji, please can you read this?
Yes. Bhakti is the only valuable asset. Narada points defect in Vyasa's work. Whatever you desire to describe that is separate in vision from the Lord simply reacts with different forms, names, and results to agitate the mind as the wind agitates the boat which has no resting place.
Yes, so here he is giving one analogy that whatever you are doing, whatever you have done, but without Lord in the center, you do so many other things, but you don't bring the Lord in the center, is going to agitate the mind. It is not going to satisfy people. It is neither going to satisfy you nor going to satisfy the people. And there is a comparison, there is an analogy given as the wind agitates a boat which has no resting place. As the wind agitates the boat which has no resting place. Now here in Prabhupada's purport, there is a little more explanation given to this analogy, which we will try to read. Mataji, can you read here?
Yes, Prabhuji. Defect in Vyasa's work. Sri Vyasadeva described transcendental realization in different ways, namely by karma, jnana, yoga, and bhakti. Besides that, in previous Puranas, he had
various Puranas.
Yes, in various Puranas, he has recommended the worship of so many demigods in different forms and names. The result is that people in general are puzzled. They are always disturbed about finding the real path of self-realization.
Yes, Mataji, just stop here. Now here what Prabhupada is saying is that Vyasadeva has done so much work. He has described so many things: karma, jnana, yoga, bhakti. In Puranas, he has described so many worship of so many demigods. And he has described so many karma kanda activities. If you want to become rich, you worship such devata. If you want to become healthy, you worship this devata. You want to gain a nice partner, nice spouse, you worship such devata. So many things he has described in Puranas, worship of so many demigods, karma, jnana, yoga, bhakti, so many things he has described. The result is that people in general are puzzled. People don't know which one is the topmost. They become puzzled. They are always disturbed about finding the real path of self-realization. So that is the defect. A very specific defect have been found by his spiritual master in Vyasadev's work. So now, okay.
Srila Narada is stressing this specific defect in the Vedic literatures compiled by Vyasadeva. And thus, he's trying to emphasize describing everything in relation with the Supreme Lord and no one else.
Yes, so here now he's saying that there is so much you have described in a general way. Now please do something where you describe very clearly in relation with the Supreme Lord, where you clearly identify that the bhakti of Supreme Lord is the topmost. Now if you remember the verses in the beginning of Bhagavatam, which verse in the beginning of Bhagavatam is where Vyasadeva is saying bhakti is the topmost, where Suta Goswami is saying bhakti is the topmost. Sa vai pumsam paro dharma yato bhakti radhokshaje. Ahetuki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. So you see that in Bhagavatam this theme starts from the very beginning, and throughout this Bhagavatam this theme continues till the end. You will find this bhakti, supremacy of bhakti, the topmost degree of bhakti is coming again and again. Now what is the comparison with the wind analogy given in this verse? So if the boat is there and the wind is blowing from different directions, different places, then ultimately the boat will actually capsize. It will not sustain. So that is the analogy of wind. Wind agitates a boat which has no resting place. So that is the analogy of the wind given here, which is comparing that there are so many things that you have mentioned that people actually have become puzzled. They cannot identify among this multiple scheme of things the topmost scheme of thing, which is actually bhakti of the Supreme Lord. Okay, Mataji. Last two verses we only, I think, have narrations from there.
Okay. Bhakti is the only valuable aspect. Encouraged enjoying tendency of people. The people in general are naturally inclined to enjoy, and you have encouraged them in that way in the name of religion. This is verily condemned and is quite unreasonable, because they are guided under your instructions. They will accept such activities in the name of religion and will hardly care for prohibitions.
Yeah, okay. I think this is an important verse. There are several points in Prabhupada's purport, and already we are a little above our time. So I will stop here. We will take this verse 15 and 16 in our next class. So I hope you found this discussion interesting enough. I will conclude the class here only. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Now we will discuss some takeaways, comments and questions. And please remember the next Mangalacharan prayers in the next class is by Rakesh ji. And the summary service is now with Vrindavaneshwari Mataji. So Mataji, please remember.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. So in the next class we continue our discussion from verse 15th onwards. So let me know if you have any questions. First of all, like to check with you, will that point of Nishkam Karma, Sakam Karma and Neshkarmya is clear to the devotees? I'm asking all the devotees, so please let me know. If that is not clear, I would like to explain that again. If it is clear, then very good. Congratulations, you understood one important concept. Any other question is also welcome. Please let me know.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I have a question.
Yes, Mataji, yes, I was waiting for you. Yes.
Not for me, Dandavad Guruji.
Yes, Prabhuji, we have Vijay Lakshmi Mataji competing with you.
Yeah. I am in the queue, no problem.
Prabhu, about Nishkam Karma,
Mataji.
if I translate it, it is a selfless activity, right?
Correct.
It is not having a karma in that.
Yeah.
Karma, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
won't it not please the Lord?
It will please the Lord.
Not every philanthropist is going to carry the ego and do it, right? Even if you do a very small thing for a helpless person or a person in need, it is equivalent to what you have given me. Like that is
Mataji,
the attitude of Lord, right?
Pure Nishkam Karma is difficult to find in the world. Pure Nishkam Karma.
Pure devotion also. I find even devotees also have ego.
No. That is correct. That is included in that in that activity of devotion also. Devotional activities are also kind of contaminated with modes, but first of all, understand the point of Nishkam Karma. At least on theoretical level, you should understand. Practical, certainly we are not pure devotees. But if you read Prabhupada purports, if our goal is pure devotional service, then also we qualify in the category of pure devotees. It is something like the fan is running, but now when you switched off the fan will continue to run for some time, but ultimately it will stop. So that is the way we should understand the devotees who are probably not at the pure level at the right moment, at this moment, but since they have identified the goal of their life as pure devotional service and they are actively working and practicing towards that goal, they are also in the category of pure devotees. So that is one thing. And Nishkam Karma, as I mentioned to you, Nishkam Karma is at the level of goodness, Sattva Guna. Sattva Guna. So in Sattva Guna, if you read chapter number 14 in Bhagavad Gita, Lord mentions that all the gunas actually are cause of bondage. Tamo Guna is also cause of bondage, and then Rajo Guna is also cause of bondage, and Sattva is also cause of bondage. Now the question is, you should ponder upon that what is wrong with Sattva Guna. What is wrong with Sattva Guna? The Sattva Guna,
the punya, basically, no, Prabhu.
Yeah.
The punya will come back, right?
Yeah. So let me give you the explanation. The defect with Sattva Guna is that the people performing Sattva Guna may have this unconsciously or subconsciously this pride that I am the doer. I am actually causing this help to the other. I am superior. There is a tendency of superiority complex among the people who are doing Sattva Guna or philanthropist work.
Even Arjuna had that, no, Prabhu, who was a devotee.
Sorry, Mataji?
Even Arjuna had some pride, even though he's at most the closest friend and devotee of the Lord. Even he experienced.
Mataji, we will take that example of Arjuna later on. First of all, understand it technically. What is wrong with Sattva Guna? So that Sattva Guna means the person actually thinks that he is a little superior. He is little superior. He may not exhibit it that superiority, but subconsciously, that is the mentality or the consciousness of the person doing Sattva Guna. That is why Sattva Guna also binds. So people like philosophers, scientists, philanthropists fall in this category. They are better than those who are at the level of Rajoguna. They are better than those who are at the level of Tamoguna. They will get some good pious reaction because of that Sattva Guna, but that will not take them to transcendence. It will not help them to transcend the world. It will continue to bind them in the world. They will again take birth in as philosopher, as philanthropist, as nice people. So you will find in society a lot of Sattva Guna people. They want to do good, but they have this tendency of ahankar, that I am the doer. Ahankar vimudhatma, that is the verse in chapter number 3 in Bhagavad Gita. Ahankar vimudhatma, kartaham iti manyate, kartaham iti manyate. They think that they are the doer, and that is the defect with Sattva Guna. But when in this Sattva Guna, devotion is mixed. So work in selflessness, that is philanthropy, that is Nishkam Karma, and work with devotion. Work with devotion means Nashkarmya. Here what it means is that we are doing the work, but with the conception of transcendence. Transcendence, now Nashkarmya would mean that somebody might think impersonal Brahman who does not have the conception of Lord Krishna as the supreme absolute truth. Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavaniti Shabdate. So they are at the level of Brahma. They are also doing Nashkarmya, but they are doing it at the level of transcendence. So Nashkarmya is also done by the yogi who is at the level of Paramatma realization. Nashkarmya is also done by the devotee. But Nashkarmya done by the devotee, work with devotion with the Lord at the center of the consciousness, is the best. That is the idea.
So, Prabhu, can you give an example of the akarma? Because
Nashkarmya's another name is akarma. Nashkarmya's another name is akarma.
Okay, so akarma can be self-interest, no? It can be, no?
Sorry, Mataji?
See, Nishkama is actually a selfless thing, where you're doing for somebody else, right? So can an akarma be self-interest? For example, if self-realization is somebody's goal, and they do anything and everything for that, will it be classified as an akarma?
Desire for liberation is also sakam karma. So if they are doing it for the desire of liberation, with liberation as the goal, that is also the ichha, or the desire for liberation is also something considered as a desire.
Very high level goal. No?
Yeah. This is at a high level. They may get liberation, they may get freedom from the material world, but ultimately that is not the topmost destination. Ultimately, yeah.
Little complicated.
Yeah. It will take some time. If you want, we can discuss separately. But let us take somebody else's question.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. Other questions or other comments do devotees have?
I just have one little confusion, Prabhu.
Yes, Madam.
About the word amogha you pointed out.
Yeah.
ऐसे सुना है ना कि अमोघ वाण मारा श्री राम ने, तो अमोघ तो वो होता है जो परफेक्ट होता है, लेकिन यहाँ पे हम अघा की बात कर रहे थे, तो उसका ऑपोजिट तो अनघा होता है ना?
I think you are right. Maybe we can check it separately. Probably you are right.
Okay.
Amogha and anagha. Anagha actually means sinless. Yes.
Yes.
Amogha, maybe I have to check once again the meaning. Amogha Leela. I'll check it to you. Yeah. Thank you, Mataji, for pointing out. Yeah. Okay. Any other remark or any other comment? Kartar uncle is gone? No, he's here. Prabhuji, you were saying something? Okay. I think it is, we are all done, I think, with this discussion. Thank you very much for staying a little late for the discussions and questions. And I hope this was useful for everyone, this Bhagavatam session.
हाँ जी, जय गुरु जी।
या आप आ गए, बताइए। यस प्रभु जी।
हाँ जी, ये आज मेरा कुछ ये कनेक्शन ऑन ऑफ होता है, जरा करना मुश्किल था।
भगवान के साथ कनेक्शन बना रहना चाहिए, इंटरनेट कनेक्शन की इतनी बड़ी।
हाँ, इसलिए वो मैंने कहा नहीं, अब हाजिरी भरनी है। हाँ जी, तो अगर समय है तो 2 मिनट लूंगा मैं इसी के ऊपर, कर्मा के ऊपर ही।
बताइए।
एक्चुअली आई विल स्टार्ट विद द बेसिक डेफिनेशन ऑफ कर्मा। एक डेफिनेशन है सुकर्मा, विकर्मा, अकर्मा। दूसरी डेफिनेशन साइंटिफिक है क्रियामान कर्म, संचित कर्म और क्यूमुलेटिव वर्क, दिस एंड एक और तीसरा स्टेज है इसके ऊपर भी। तो हाँ जी, क्रियामान कर्म, हाँ जी, क्रियामान कर्म, संचित कर्म और अकर्म, वो जैसे उसमें था। बट बेसिकली क्या है कि इन सभी चीजों में जो मेन चीज है, एम है हम सबका, टू रीच निष्काम कर्म। Now to reach Nishkam Karma, we have to have no any expectation at all 3 levels of consciousness. That is Sthul, Karan and Sukshma. ना बॉडीली लेवल पे कोई हमको एक्सपेक्ट करना है उसका रिजल्ट, ना सूक्ष्म लेवल पे एक्सपेक्ट करना है, ना कारण अवस्था मींस सेमी कॉन्शियस स्टेट।
तो व्हेन यू डू भक्ति,
तो जागते हुए
व्हेन वी डू भक्ति, ऑल द एक्टिविटीज आर फॉर लॉर्ड कृष्णा। So there is, when we are, say for example, when we are chanting the holy names, there is no other expectation. It is a purely spiritual activity, and which is also transcendental, which is also connected with the Lord. So ultimately, when we do activities of bhakti, they are all transcendental at all 3 levels: man, buddhi, and whatever, ahankar, or
ahankar.
At all levels, at sharir, manasa, vacha, karmana.
गुरु जी, ये डिफरेंट डेफिनेशन है, ये डिफरेंट अप्रोच है। ये जो स्थूल सूक्ष्म और कारण अवस्था में,
मैं प्रभु जी मैं आपको वही बता रहा हूँ ना, हमको
जी गुरु जी,
हमको तो
हाँ जी,
अल्टीमेटली कंक्लूजन पे आना है कि भाई
हाँ जी गुरु जी,
भक्ति करेंगे तो बाकी सब इंक्लूड हो गया, बाकी मामला खत्म, बाकी और डिबेट करने का जरूरत ही नहीं, मतलब वो
तो
है।
भक्ति के भी तो गुरु जी लेवल ही होते हैं ना, आपने सिखाया है ना, क्योंकि एक ऑर्डिनरी भक्ति जब मैं शुरू करता हूँ और जब तक मैं भक्ति के मीनिंग को समझ के उस
हाँ
लेवल में पहुंचता हूँ, तो उसमें तो काफी
नहीं, वही तो मैं समझा रहा हूँ
करना
आपको,
पड़ता है ना।
वही तो मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ कि भक्त
जी
जो
गुरु
है,
जी, जी
जिसने ये
जी
स्वीकार
जी
कर लिया है, who has accepted
जी, हाँ जी,
as Lord Krishna as the supreme object of worship and the activities of bhakti as the main activities in his life, then that person is also pure devotee. Is only
जी
time is
गुरु जी,
separating him and the lotus feet of the Lord, only some time is separating them two.
जी
But he is on the
जी गुरु
path
जी,
and ultimately he will reach there. So he is also
जी गुरु
a
जी,
Vaidhi Bhakta. Vaidhi Bhakta means
जी
a Bhakta in practice. A Bhakta
जी गुरु
doing
जी,
practice. Vaidhi Bhakti is
जी
also a pure devotee.
जी गुरु जी।
Yeah. So
वो
even if
जी
yeah,
जी गुरु जी,
he may not be performing the activities of bhakti in the all the time in the right way, but in
जी
subconsciously he has accepted Lord Krishna as the supreme object of worship and bhakti as the main goal of life and the main activity of life.
हाँ जी,
He is also pure devotee.
नहीं वो जी जी गुरु जी, वही मेरा मतलब वही है, लेकिन डिफरेंट वे में है, क्योंकि वो एक लेवल पे सिर्फ एकदम सबकॉन्शियस लेवल पे एक्सेप्ट करना बड़ी मुश्किल काम है, क्योंकि इसके बाद
नहीं
समाधि
मुश्किल,
आ
वही तो
जाती
मैं
है।
पूछ रहा हूँ, मुश्किल क्या है
हाँ,
भाई? भगवान श्री
मुश्किल तो
कृष्ण
कुछ भी नहीं है।
वही तो मैं कह रहा हूँ,
हाँ
भगवान श्री कृष्ण जो
हाँ
है परम आराध्य देव हैं और भक्ति हमारा
जी
मुख्य कार्य है। ये बात अगर किसी ने
जी गुरु
स्वीकार
जी,
कर ली है तो बात खत्म, इतनी सी
जी
बात है।
नहीं, अभी तो जैसे आपने बोला इन रियल सेंस निष्काम कर्म एक
हाँ नहीं
नॉर्मल
वो नहीं
पर्सन या
वो
दुनिया में बहुत
भाई
मुश्किल है।
अगर
हाँ
आप
जी,
से पहले भोजन वितरण
हाँ
करते
जी,
थे, आप उस
जी
भोजन को भगवान का भोग लगा के उसको वितरण करें, आप बात खत्म हो गई, भक्ति हो
जी
गई। वही
जी जी,
एक्टिविटी है, एक्टिविटी ऊपर से देखने में वही है, लेकिन उसमें जो
नहीं वो
चेतना।
पर वो कांस्टेंट रहनी चाहिए ना, वो कांस्टेंट नहीं रहती ना,
नहीं नहीं,
वो तो
मैं कब कह रहा हूँ,
घड़ी तो घड़ी रही,
मैं कब
उसके
कह
बाद
रहा
में
हूँ,
फिर वो आप
मैं कब कह
भूल
रहा
गए।
हूँ, जब
जी
वो रोज सुबह उठ के जब आप जप करते हैं, जब भगवान के आगे हाथ
जी
जोड़ते
गुरु जी,
हैं, जब तो
जी गुरु
आती है
जी,
ना वो कॉन्शियसनेस, उसका
जी जी जी,
कुछ भाग तो दिन में बचा रहता है ना।
देखो गुरु जी, मैं और इससे सिंपलर आपको एक एनालॉजी देता हूँ।
हाँ जी,
देखिए, जब भी हम कहीं भी कीर्तन में या मंदिर में या कहीं अच्छी उस स्थान पे जाते हैं, तो हम जोड़े बाहर उतारते हैं,
हाँ जी,
जूते अपने।
हाँ जी,
वो जूते, गुरु कहता है कि भी ये जो आपने आपके पांचों विषय हैं,
हम्म
काम क्रोध मोह लोभ अहंकार मद मद से, वो
हम्म
सारे आप जूतों के साथ उसको उतार आते हैं।
हम्म
जितनी देर आप